So I'm a little teary because we're here in Whistle Stop. Well, it's not Whistle Stop, it's Juliette, Georgia, but the town Whistle Stop from Fried Green Tomatoes. And I didn't think I'd get this emotional over a movie set, but I am. It's just so cool. This place that I've been dreaming about coming to since I was 12 years old. Yeah, I got teary.
I got teary because you got teary.
Yeah. It's just so cool. Like, we've been to a lot of filming locations of things over the years, and I've never really gotten emotional about it, but this one I did. Hi, I'm Amy.
And I'm Laura.
And this is
Film Trail. Recently, we went down to Atlanta on a road trip over spring break, and we toured all around the area. We saw all kinds of things and had a great time, but one of the biggest things that we did while we were there was to visit the filming locations from Fried Green Tomatoes.
Fried Green Tomatoes has been one of my favorite movies since I was 12 years old. That's when I first saw it in the theaters. So I had been wanting to go and visit the filming locations for a very long time. So this was a really special bucket list item for me. So when we were gonna go to Atlanta, I thought this is a perfect opportunity for us to go and see all those filming locations from what is one of my favorite films. Driving into the town was really incredible because you've seen it in the film so many times, but then I'd also seen people's videos of their footage from the town, and I looked on Google Street View, and I had this idea that it was actually, even though it's a very small area, I still thought it was going to be a little bit bigger than it was. So we turned down the street, and really it's just like a few seconds of, being on the street before you hit the sort of the end of the town itself. And it was so small, and it felt so much smaller than I ever imagined it would. But it was really incredible to see all of these filming locations all around you. And, every time you were driving in, there was like, oh, there's this building on this side, and then there's this one on this side. So you're seeing all these great filming locations, but it was much smaller and shorter than I anticipated it would be.
As we were driving down, it was pouring buckets. It was raining so hard. And so we were not even sure how much of the town we were gonna get to see, like walk around and experience. We thought maybe we're just gonna eat at the cafe and that's it for today. We'll come back another day to try to see all of the outdoor stuff that we can see. But we arrived in town and it rained, and we drove up and down the main street a couple times. All of a sudden the sun came out and it was beautiful, and we got to walk around a little bit. So that was really exciting to have the weather clear out the way that we wanted it to.
So not only did we get to see all of the locations in Juliette, Georgia, but we also got to go and visit the locations that were just all over the place south of Atlanta. Getting to go into the cafe, I think, was probably the highlight of all of the locations, because it is so original and it is so true to what it was in the film. So when you go in there, you do feel like you're stepping back into the movie itself. A lot of the items that were there during the filming are still there. It's the same booths, the same counter, the same layout, just small slight changes with like decorations on the wall, but other than that, it's exactly as it is in the film. So when you're sitting there eating, you actually feel like you're on a movie set. And not only that, but when we went in, they told us you can have one of these booths along the side, and I immediately knew that I wanted to pick the booth that had the original window from the movie, which was so neat because it's got the bullet hole in it and everything. So I didn't think that we would be able to sit in that booth, so I thought I'd just see it across from the room. I didn't want to get in anyone's face to try to get a better look at it or anything like that, but we ended up being able to sit at that booth and have a great view of that window, that piece of film history. So yeah, that was a great thing. And also just being able to eat fried green tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe.
really good. The breading is nice and light. It's crispy. And the flavor is really good. It's kind of almost like, I want to say almost like a pickle. It's interesting. Yeah, it's really good.
As you said, there's like almost like a pickle flavor to it, like some kind of brine maybe. But the tomato flavor comes through really strongly. It's delicious. This is so good.
I had eaten fried green tomatoes only once as a kid, and I made them myself. In the back of the book, Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe, that the movie is based on, there's actually a section in the back with some recipes, and one of them was fried green tomatoes, of course. So when I was 12 years old and really into the movie, I thought, well, I'm gonna make these fried green tomatoes, even though I hate tomatoes. Hate tomatoes, and I still do to this day. But I made them in our skillet at home on the stove, and I think I ate maybe one of them, but I did eat it. So it was much better experiencing the real thing in the cafe.
Yeah, absolutely. And the sweet tea.
And the sweet tea. The sweet tea was really incredible.
Yeah, that was delicious.
Hands down, best iced tea I've ever had.
Oh, that's so good.
A lot of the buildings in town are exactly the same as they were, just different paint. So it was neat to see that. But what's really interesting is that they did move some things around, both for filming and then after filming. When they were location scouting, they found the old train depot for Juliette, Georgia. It was in the woods and it had trees growing up through it. And they removed that from the woods, moved it out by the train tracks for the purpose of filming. And then after filming, they weren't allowed to keep it there next to the train tracks, so they moved it into town. So it's now just a couple doors down. Basically, it's next door to the Whistle Stop Cafe in town. And there's actually another building that moved too, and that's Ruth and Idgie's place. In the film, it was right behind the cafe, basically where the train depot is now, but that was moved across the street. So it's still in the town, it's just in a slightly different location. But again, the town is only a few buildings long, so it's all just right there. And there's also a building that's in the film, it's a bank. And when they did that, they basically just made a facade of a bank to have in the film. And after filming was done, the town built a building behind that so that they could actually keep the facade and use it as an actual building. But it would be structurally sound so that they could do that. And that is where the official Whistle Stop Cafe gift shop is located, is in that building.
Yeah, we spend a little money there.
Yeah, a lot of money. The town is full of shops that have souvenirs. We're wearing our Whistle Stop Cafe and Fried Green Tomatoes t-shirts. We got a lot of t-shirts, keychains, all kinds of stuff. In the stores, you can see some memorabilia from the movie, some behind the scenes photos. It's a really interesting thing because pretty much every shop has something to do with the movie.
Speaking of behind the scenes, out in back of the cafe, we got to see the infamous barbecue pit and Smoky Lonesome Shack.
You can see the mill, obviously from town, from the Whistle Stop Cafe. It's across the train tracks, but those train tracks are closed off now, so you can't cross over to the mill, and it also is a private property. However, there is a small park that's located just down the street, and you can drive in there, and it has a great view of the mill and the area where Idgie sat to go fishing, where she spent time talking with Buddy Jr. You can see the top of the dam where Ruth and Buddy and Idgie, towards the beginning of the film, are walking across it. Can't see the other side of the dam from there, unfortunately, and the other areas where you can access that are on private property. But it was still interesting to see it, the mill from that angle in the park. It gives you a great vantage. It's right on the river, so it's really a cool place to go. And especially if you're in town and you can't get into the Whistle Stop Cafe because it fills up really fast and is going all day, or if you're there on a day that it's not open, you could always take a picnic down there by the river. The church that features pretty heavily in the film is also in Juliette. It's just down the road from all of the downtown area. And that is also the cemetery where Ruth and Buddy were both buried. So they have actually 2 little plaques on the ground in the location where those graves were buried in the film. and people still leave little trinkets for both of them, and they still leave honey for Ruth, which is such a neat thing. And it's
like 35
years later, and people are still leaving these little trinkets and devotionals to like these characters, which just speaks to the impact that the film had on people. And another thing that I was hoping was still there is it's a very small scene towards the end of the film. After Ruth dies during her funeral, she didn't want Buddy Jr. to have to sit through the service, so Idgie took him over to the side of the church and was playing catch with him. And it's in front of this old gate and these stone pillars. And it was old back when the film was shot, so I didn't think that would still be there, but it was still there. And yeah, it's just those little pieces that are still everywhere that make it so great, because a lot of times when you're going to filming locations, things change so much, especially in 35 years. But this is such a small, sleepy area. It's very tiny. Not much has changed.
One thing that did change was the nursing home.
The nursing home that also features pretty heavily in the film, it's very much the same. The building looks identical. It doesn't look like that has changed very much at all. You can even see the areas, the windows through which, many of the scenes took place, because they did film inside the nursing home. So on one end, you have the lounge where Ninny and Evelyn did a lot of the story sharing and their time together. And then on the other end is actually where Ninny's room was located, and you can see those pretty clearly. But one thing that's really different is the landscaping. There were a lot of trees and shrubs and different things where a lot of the scenes that take place outside also incorporate those things, where Ninny and Evelyn are sitting outside on the little rocker, and there's little chairs around and they're talking outside. That's all gone, most of it. There are new shrubs and new trees, but they're not at all what was there before. So while it's still very much the same, the landscape has completely changed around it. The hospital from Fried Green Tomatoes, it's a very, very small scene. It's literally only seconds. It's basically when Buddy Jr., he falls in front of the train and his arm gets cut off. Big George picks him up and gets him into the car, and they take him over to the hospital. And there's just a quick little scene of Big George sitting outside on the steps. But it's also kind of a pivotal scene, because it shows that here he is helping to save this child's life, and because he's Black, he has to sit outside. He wasn't allowed to go into the hospital.
We also headed over to Senoia, Georgia to see the Threadgoode house and the train tracks where Buddy Jr. gets his arm cut off, where Buddy perishes. I mean, hopefully that's not a spoiler at this point. But yeah, like that was really an important location. The house, so much happens there.
And the house in real life looks so much smaller than it does in the film. It's kind of interesting. I found that with all of these filming locations, that they seem so much bigger on the screen, and then when you see them in real life, they're much smaller. But a lot of pivotal scenes take place there. The one thing that I was disappointed in is that the tree out front, where Idgie has her little tree house, that tree is no longer there.
We also went to 2 different store locations because there were 2 locations used for the Winn-Dixie store in the film.
Yeah, that's one thing that is a point of contention online. When you go to any kind of forums that talk about the film locations for Fried Green Tomatoes, everyone's fighting about which Winn-Dixie was actually used, but both of them were. There's one that's used for the scene where Evelyn's in the grocery store. She comes out, she's got a bag of groceries, and this guy bumps into her, calls her some names, and she follows him outside the store to the parking lot. And when he drives off, her bag falls apart, and she's crying about her stovetop dressing. It's such a great scene. That's filmed at one Winn-Dixie location, and then the other one where she drives into the back of the Volkswagen Beetle multiple times was a different location. The understanding is that it's supposed to be the same one. They look very similar, but they were actually shot in 2 different locations. They're not Winn-Dixies anymore. One's a food depot, one's like a thrift store or something. They're totally different now, but we went to both of them because gotta go to every filming location. Stovetop. The courthouse from the film, where Idgie and Big George go on trial, The exterior of the courthouse is a very small scene, but we did want to go there. They did film the interiors inside that courthouse as well. It's actually in the town of Zebulon, and in the film it was the Valdosta courthouse.
And the last two locations that we have to discuss are both outdoors. The first is the honey tree.
The honey tree is a pivotal scene in the film. It's very iconic, where Idgie goes and pulls the honeycomb directly out of the tree with all the bees all over. That tree actually was just a prop. It wasn't a real tree. They had to be able to feed the honey in from the back of it and have the bees around. A really interesting fact is that the stunt woman who was supposed to be playing that role with the bees, she actually backed out at the last second, and so Mary Stuart Masterson had to step in. She did that herself. She didn't have any kind of protective gear. They did, between takes, have the smoke to, to be able to calm the bees down and everything, but she did that all on her own, which was really incredible. But I think it made for a better, more authentic feel to the film. So we wanted to try to figure out where that honey tree was. Even though the tree itself did not exist, the grove of trees that they were sitting under and the farm had to exist somewhere. And I searched high and low on the internet, and I had only seen at one point, a very, very long time ago, a reference to a road name in a town. And back then, they didn't have any kind of Google Street View for that area, so it was impossible to know. It was just all farmland, if that was really it. But then very recently, they actually got Street View in that area, and I was able to take a look at it, and I did find the location based on the buildings that you can see in the background of the scene and the placement of the tree and everything. So that was a really exciting location. I was hoping that we would be able to find that one, because that was the last one that I was really looking for. And we did. So we drove out to the farm, and we got to go by and see where the honey tree was. And that grove of trees is still there, where they sat underneath to enjoy the honey.
Yeah, we were really excited, even though all we could do was drive past. We couldn't go to the trees, because it's in the middle of a field, but it was still super exciting to be able just to drive by and see where the honey tree had been and where that little stand of trees was. The final location that we got to see for fried green tomatoes, and we got to see pretty much all of them, but this one we had to do on a different day because it had been raining and we had run out of time, and we knew we were not going to be able to truly enjoy the hike that was required for this location, the old Red Mill.
Yeah, the Red Mill was actually used as the river club. So there are a few scenes that are shot there. One, when Ruth tries to get Idgie to come befriend her, and she goes and finds her at the river club gambling. And then there are other scenes shot there where it's Ruth's birthday and they're celebrating and playing baseball outside and things like that. So it's an old dilapidated mill. And it's actually on land now that is owned by Historic Banning Mills, which is a resort, but they have things like hiking trails, zip lining, ropes courses, all kinds of things like that. So it's sort of an adventure resort. And if you stay there, you can go on all the trails for free. But if you are not a registered guest, you can go, sign in, pay a $7 fee, which helps maintain the trails and everything, and you can go and hike yourself. And there are several trail systems that you can use to get to the mill. The one that we opted to do was along the Snake Creek, and it takes you to sort of an overview across the creek from the mill. The other ones, it's much, much more hiking to get to actually get up and close to the mill. So we didn't have that amount of time to do like a 5-mile hike. This one was a nice mile out. And so we did that one instead. It was incredible. It was beautiful. The river was gorgeous. The scenery was gorgeous. As you're going by, there are all sorts of ruins from other mills. And then you get to the end and you get to see the Red Mill that was used in the film. So that's a location that I really didn't think, many years ago, I didn't think we'd be able to access, because before that land was purchased, there was no way to access it really legally. So I'm very happy that they now allow people to go and hike there.
Oh wait, there was one more bonus location that we got to see by total accident. We were hiking along the train tracks in Stone Mountain Park when suddenly, well, we almost just got hit by a train. Not really, but we were on the tracks and the train came through. So we jumped off to the side, got out of the way, and then noticed that the caboose was the caboose from Fried Green Tomatoes. So it's just another little piece of fried green tomatoes that we got to see on this trip.
Yes, the train section was shot here in the park where Idgie and Ruth are on the train throwing food out to the residents of Troutville, and then when they jump off the train you can see the caboose come by, and it's the same caboose, so it's pretty cool.
Awesome.
When you watch movies, you don't really think too much about, you know, especially when you're a kid, you don't think so much about like where it's filmed and stuff like that. How it's made, you know, you're just watching the movie. But yeah, this, when I read in a magazine like where it was filmed, and I thought, you know, oh, that's so cool, you know, and I read that they kept the cafe open afterwards, and I thought that's so neat that you can go and visit this place, you know, that's like in this movie. And so that was really the first time I'd ever thought about it, you know, going to see like where something is filmed. So yeah, this one's a big one for me.
Thanks for watching our first film trail video. To visit some of these locations yourself, check out the information in our video description. And while you're here, please like this video and subscribe to our channel so you can join us on our upcoming trips to see filming locations from Stranger Things, Ozark, Cobra Kai, and more.